Good morning. Buenos dias. I have a fun story for you, but I want you to remember myself and other big creators have explored the option that perhaps former President Donald J. Trump, 34-time convicted felon, twice impeached, failed former President Trump, was not shot by a bullet. Was it a shard of glass? Was it plexiglass? Was it a big mosquito? We might never know. But Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, who is in charge of the investigation of the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, says this.
With respect to former President Trump, there's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that hit his ear. So it's conceivable, although as I sit here right now, I don't know whether that bullet, in addition to, causing the grazing, could have also landed somewhere else. But I believe we've accounted for all of the shots.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We got to talk about a story that is probably going to be ignored by the left, okay? Because the left has come out here and ran another psyop on the American people to try to make it seem like some far-right Trump supporter was the person that tried to assassinate President Trump at that rally that happened, 2 weeks ago? And the mainstream liberal media stopped talking about it, right? Everybody stopped talking about it. They've moved on to, Kamala Harris is so great. Okay, she's the next coming of the DEI Jesus. Everybody should get behind her, or you're racist, sexist, you're a bigot. But in my opinion, the most important story really is about the fact that we almost had a former president of the United States be assassinated. Now, again, a lot of these people on the left, they don't even want to believe that Trump was shot, right? They keep coming out here and speculating whether or not Trump was actually shot in the ear as if that matters, right? That doesn't matter more than the fact that there was a failed assassination attempt on the president that was allowed to happen by the Secret Service, who seems to be run by incompetent people. Now, Cheadle has resigned, okay? She is now out, right, after the hearing, okay? But there's still questions about the motive of the gunman, okay? And the mainstream liberal media has tried to gaslight people into believing that the motive of the gunman was just some far-right lunatic who was not happy about Trump being not far-right enough, which would be an admission that Trump is not far right, okay? But again, the mainstream liberal media, they're so stupid, and they're so caught up in their narrative of trying to protect the American public from seeing the fact that a vast majority of the political violence in this country is happening because of far-left extremists, that they don't even realize that the narratives that they are painting don't even make sense compared to the things that they've said before in the past. But again, the mainstream liberal media and the Democrat propagandists, they really want you to believe that this guy was a MAGA shooter. He was a MAGA shooter. And that Democrats, hey, they don't need to denounce violence because they're not responsible for any violence in this country that has ever happened over politics.
If you want to see the media's bias against Democrats on full display, look no further than how this particular issue is being litigated, where the guy who has spent the better part of a decade fomenting violence is finally on the receiving end of it at the hands of a registered Republican, no less, and yet suddenly it's the Democrats' fault for not lowering the temperature in this country. No cause to lower the temperature when Trump told his rally-goers to beat up protesters and that he would pay their legal bills. No cause to lower the temperature when Trump posted a picture of Joe Biden hogtied.
But we just got some reporting from a local news agency in Pennsylvania today that could give us a clearer view of the political beliefs of the shooter. This news agency talked to some of the shooter's neighbors who lived around him in the neighborhood he lived in, and they confirmed that he had some political signs on his yard in recent years. Those political signs? Trump signs. Trump supporting signs. Seriously. So we're going to look at the reporting. We'll talk about it a little bit, but here is that reporting from the local news agency.
Investigators dressed in plain clothes as well as FBI agents approach this house. That's where the family of Thomas Crooks lives, which is right here on Milford Drive. Then we started to see those agents going door to door, canvassing the neighborhood and speaking with people who live here. They're trying to get answers to the many questions that still remain. Crooks's motive is still unclear. Records show he is a registered Republican, and neighbors today told us that they've actually seen Trump signs outside of the home over the course of the last few years.
Yeah, so some fantastic reporting there from 11 News, a local news agency, I believe in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They also actually spoke to neighbors who talked about seeing these signs in front of the shooter's yard. Take a look at that here as well.
Neighbor Kelly Little had few answers for the FBI and just as many questions herself. She said until recently there were pro-Trump signs in the Crooks' front yard.
There absolutely was MAGA supporting things for a while.
MAGA supporting things the shooter had in front of his house. This is quite a startling.
Okay, but we all know, just based off common sense, that it is very likely that this individual was not a Trump supporter. Okay, although he was a registered Republican, that means absolutely nothing when it comes to what his motivation was, because we know that some of the most Trump deranged individuals in this country are, in fact, Republicans, okay? And Trump derangement seems to be the primary motivating cause for this shooter, just based off common sense, right? Not based off unverified stories from neighbors claiming that, oh, I saw some pro-Trump signs in the yard and he's a registered Republican. Again, none of these things, right, are evidence, okay, of the shooter's motive, okay? We all know, common sense, that it would not make sense for a Trump supporter to try to assassinate Trump. It does not make sense, okay? And now we're actually getting some real evidence about what this guy's political beliefs may have been, and lo and behold, he's a massive Biden supporter, right? Again, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this, because the media is not going to cover this. They're going to sweep this under the rug, but this is exactly what I've been talking about, guys, how these people on the left are being radicalized against Trump. It has resulted in an assassination attempt that almost blew the president's brains out for the world to see. So let's get into it. The gunman who tried to assassinate former President Donald Trump appears to have used the controversial alt-right favorite social media platform Gab to spread messages, quote, in support of President Biden, according to the platform's founder. Gab CEO Andrew Torba said he learned Wednesday that Thomas Matthew Crooks, quote, may have had an account on our platform after getting, quote, an emergency disclosure request from a law enforcement agency. The account, Epic Microwave, which the CEO stressed he has been unable to confirm was definitely Crooks, posted on the site 9 times total. Torba tweeted just 30 minutes after getting the law enforcement request. Okay, so what we have here, okay, is the law enforcement that is investigating this, requesting some information about this account that they believe is connected to the shooter, okay? While the account made very few posts on the site, the majority of them were in support of President Biden, said the CEO of the platform, launched in 2016 as a completely free speech alternative to Twitter. Quote, a number of posts in particular expressed support for President Biden's COVID lockdowns, border policies, and executive orders. Torber shared images of pro-Biden comments made by the account with its handle blacked out. In one, the poster mocked someone sharing an election projection, writing in February 2021, quote, didn't you also think Biden would lose in a landslide? Yeah, I would not be very confident in your election predictions. In another thread, the user defended Biden's border policies with a study that compared crime statistics for undocumented immigrants, legal immigrants, and American citizens in Texas. Yeah, so again, if this account did in fact belong to this guy was a bleeding heart liberal, right? That registered Republican. That's what it sounds like to me, okay? Because if this guy supports open borders, he is in fact a bleeding heart liberal. Quote, Biden's executive orders don't incentivize human trafficking, as human traffickers aren't interested in citizenships. Likewise, the majority of illegal immigrants are not criminals. And in fact, some studies, such as the one linked below, show lower rates of crime committed by these individuals, the poster wrote. Okay, yeah, so classic liberal Democrat talking points. But again, the media is trying to say, oh, well, he was MAGA, right? He was some far-right extremist that just hated Trump because Trump wasn't far-right enough. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Quote, it is also unclear if the extensive path to citizenship is in fact effective at routing out potential bad actors, hence why there is a review of that system, the user added. Torber said he was, quote, disclosing this information as a significant personal and business risk. Quote, if the past is any guide, defying the DC consensus by publishing the first definitive evidence that the shooter was a Biden supporter, something Democrats and the media allies have tried to cover up and deny at every turn, has a high probability of resulting in significant political and media backlash, he wrote. Yeah, so he's basically saying, listen, it's not favorable for me to come out here and to say that this guy was probably a Biden supporter, right? I mean, there is evidence that this account belonged to the criminal, the assassin, the would-be assassin, because otherwise law enforcement would not be requesting information about it, right? They're requesting information about it because they believe that it belongs to him, right? It belongs to him. Quote, "We have saved the account data pending receipt of a search warrant," he stated. Okay, so this seems to be the first sign that the shooter was, in fact, a Biden supporter, in the sense that we have actual social media posts that are indicative of the shooter's political ideology, okay? Because you got to understand, him being registered as a Republican does not tell you anything about his actual political ideology, because political parties are not political ideologies, okay? There are liberal Republicans just like there are conservative Democrats. However, when you look at his post on Gab, if these posts do in fact belong to the shooter, then that would indicate that he was politically a liberal, okay? And that Trump derangement probably is what drove him to commit this act of violence against the president. This guy was a massive Biden supporter. And I'm not surprised by this at all, because the one piece of evidence that we did have, okay, that did indicate what his political ideology may have been before this, is that he donated to a progressive super PAC, I believe, right? He donated to a progressive campaign. A Trump supporter, a conservative, somebody that is far right, is not doing that, right? They're not doing that under any circumstance. So again, it is perfectly reasonable to rationalize why a liberal would register as a Republican, okay? Because we've seen that some of those Trump deranged individuals in this country are Republicans. Look at the Lincoln Project. Look at Anna Navarro. Look at Alyssa Fair Griffin. Okay? They're out there everywhere. Okay? But it's hard to rationalize why a Trump supporter would donate to a progressive PAC and try to assassinate the former president. That doesn't make sense. But that's the narrative that the media is putting out there that they want you to believe. Okay? Which is that, hey, this guy was some Trump supporter. He was far right. But it seems as if this guy was a liberal who supported Joe Biden, who was a progressive. Look at these posts. This guy believes in open borders. Okay? He loves illegals, which is a progressive position, right? This guy probably would have voted for Kamala Harris, to be quite honest with you. So, again, we have to wait and see to verify that that account belonged to that guy for sure. Okay, it belonged to the assassin for sure. We really don't know that yet, but in all likelihood, it does. Okay, it's highly likely. Although the tech CEO can't confirm definitely yet, but we know the fact that law enforcement is interested probably is an indication that that account belonged to him. So I'm putting this story out there because the media is not going to put it out there. They're going to sweep it under the rug. They're not going to have a conversation about this or speculate, whether or not this guy was some deranged liberal that decided to assassinate the president. No, they're going to sweep it under the rug and then pretend like political violence doesn't happen in this country from the left, when a vast majority of the political violence in this country happens from the left. But again, they'll have this conversation about, oh, well, the right is so dangerous, right? The right causes all the political violence in this country. Simply not true. These people on the left are out of control, and a lot of this stuff is happening because the rhetoric in the mainstream liberal media, the anti-Trump rhetoric, is out of control. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.